Well, it's a busy day out here at Two Rivers Park, where Grow Enrichment is hosting their Nashville Permaculture Action Day. It is the 100th Permaculture Action Day across the country, and it's a great event. Fantastic turnout with kids and families of all sorts. Workers are going on nonstop in all the different project areas. Very exciting day. So Sizwe, here we are. You've been involved in the permaculture movement for many years here in Nashville. Tell me a little bit about what we have going on as the community coming together for the purpose and the philosophy behind permaculture.
Sure, I'll be glad to, because this is part of what's right with Nashville. This is a solution-based operation here. But permaculture actually was started in the 80s, late 70s with Bill Mollison.
Yep.
And then David Holmgren came in and he made the principles a little bit more understandable. But it's science too. That's what I want people to understand. Permaculture is a science. It's not just something to do, it's a way of thinking. So it's a technology in a way. So what you have is, you have three ethics, which is care for the earth, care for the people, and care for the community, in that order. But we also look at it as earth care, people care, and fair share, right, as a way of thinking about it. So it is. So when you look at those three ethics, then there's a series of about 10, some say 12 principles that go with those ethics. We can talk about those in a few, but also people confuse the word permaculture as being permanent agriculture. Well, we know there's no such thing as permanent in anything. And then also permanent culture, which is what we are striving for. This is a way of life. It's a behavior system. We're saying people realize that apple core is not trash. It doesn't belong in the trash can. That banana peel no longer will you ever want to put a banana peel in the trash can again, because you're thinking differently. And the earth needs it, so we're feeding the earth is what we tell our kids at our organization. So my history is I got my introduction to permaculture certification in 1993 at the farm in Summertown, Tennessee. And I came back 3 years later in 96 and got my design certificate. So I've been active in the permaculture scene around the country. There's a black permaculture network out there. And from what we realize, I have been dubbed the oldest African-American certified permaculture teacher in the country since I've had mine for as long as I have. So it's not ego, it's just it's a way of life. Yes,
that's right. It's been your passion for many years.
So we started Earth Matters. Earth Matters was real active. It still is active in the city with regard to composting and community gardens, where we first met and managed a big 4-acre site in South Nashville for almost 20 years. So we have a really nice green storied history here in the city.
If you could speak a little bit towards what that means to you at this point of seeing kind of permaculture in action in Nashville and how it's really taking effect.
If we would look at more spaces we can garner in the city to do some programming around permaculture, which includes history, like George Washington Carver, right? He, to me, was the grandfather of permaculture. He didn't call it that, but everything that he taught as far as his lifestyles, it's the same way as what permaculture is. And I went to Tuskegee and I walked the paths of Dr. Carver and I talked to the same trees he talked to, and I'm inspired by him every day.
Fantastic.
So yeah, the people here, man, we just had a circle with a couple, it was a lot of people. Maybe not, maybe 100 people or so, maybe more than that. And children are here and they broke off into different work groups. So we're looking at diversity by coming together. Right. So that's like a yin and a yang, right? And like diversity is sort of different things, but we're bringing it together for a common goal. Care of the earth, care of the people, and care of community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So Ginger, we are standing in this beautiful area of forest woodland area right next to the Grow Enrichment project site. Tell us what you have planned here. There's a lot of work and activity going on today. What are some of the plans for in the coming years?
Sure. Right now today we're working with volunteers to clear understory trees out, and also trees that were already past in their decline. This section of this upper forest system is considered to be part of the play area. It's the forest half of the nature playground. So it has a lot of children moving through it on a regular basis. Trees that are dead and dropping limbs present a hazard. But the goal ultimately is to restore the forest system and to involve the community and the children in that process. In fact, the trails that run through here, all of these rocks were brought in by hand by children, just like, and Wallace was with them when he was 3. So kids have done that, and the goal for the forest system would be for us to open up sunlight so that we can encourage the hardwoods that remain to do better, while we have a chance to run our goats through the system and add some fertilizer and some nutrients.
Kind of like a rotational grazing almost a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. And so you're utilizing the furry friends here and utilizing their ability to take care of some of the natives and helping with that.
Yes, we chose goats specifically because as rumens, when they consume the seeds of these invasive plants, like this is bush honeysuckle right behind us, and see it's already gone to seed. When those seeds pass through their system, they're sterilized. So not only do we have an animal that can help us stress the plant to the point that it can't survive and we can reduce the invasive plants, but also we reduce the amount of viable seed in the soil bank, which is critical for us in this fight. Plus, this particular breed is a heritage breed to Tennessee. It's a Tennessee myotonic goat, which people call fainting goats, which is a misnomer. But they're very small. As you can see, this animal is 7 months old, and a larger breed would easily be twice that size by now. They're very docile. They're able to get a lot of this ground stuff out.
And so, Ginger, we're in one of the areas where you have done some reclaiming, both with the selective pruning and with the goats, taking care of some of the the non-native invasives. What are some of the plans? I see we're surrounded almost in a sea by pawpaws.
We are. So this is a wild grove of Asimina triloba trees. The parents are a little bit further behind. They're all marked with pink tags back there in the background. This has been a really exciting thing to find here, because it is the only host plant for our state butterfly, the zebra swallowtail. And we do a lot of work with native pollinators. And they're actually pollinated by flies and beetles, which gives us great education stuff for kids and the public. What we find grows under the pawpaw grove is every spring, sweet Betsy trilliums come up right beside them, along with May apples. They seem to find those 3 things together all the time.
Gotcha.
This forest has a lot of hackberry, red oak. There are some hickories here, and it has been our goal, we take the task of stewardship and the idea of restoring the forest system very seriously. And, something that was impressed upon me deeply in Master Gardener training was that idea of the right tree in the right place.
Right.
And with that, I took that deeper and thought about, well, not only is it the right place because it can survive there, but what tree was supposed to be here? Which trees were here before the Civil War? And says this property was part of the Two Rivers estate. So what was here was predominantly American chestnut, which all went out in the blight. Underneath that, it was predominantly poplar. The Two Rivers mansion is framed entirely out of poplar that was harvested off this site. So when the Civil War hit, all the valuable hardwood was removed. The nice, good oaks that we have are here because they were seedlings at the time. They were too small to be worth anything. But that's good for us. So now our goal is to go, okay, we have these few anchor big canopy trees. Let's open up light, since children play in this space frequently. This is their play space. The goal is to open up as much sun as we can to encourage the pawpaw grove to grow, and then work the goats through to add some fertility and restore the soil. And then we're going to come back next year and reseed this entire area with the native ferns and wildflowers so that we create that soft layer, so that this becomes more of a magical forest play wonderland. Because we're really trying to inspire that love of nature in children who come here.
Gotcha.
But we also want them to be able to identify the native plants that are from this place.
Gotcha.
So only what was here originally is getting replanted in the system.
And that's one of the tenets or practices and principles of permaculture, is the multi-layer approach into working in food systems and working with land management. And so you have the large story trees, and then you're working into the understory with pawpaws, and then the plantings of the native ferns and the ground covers is what you're talking about. I think it's a fabulous idea. And I love what you're doing over there in the edible section nearest the children's play area, about how you're incorporating some of the edible and herbaceous perennials. Maybe we can go talk about that a little bit.
Sure, that's
All
an
right.
exciting part of the project.
Awesome. Great. And so, Ginger, Well, one of the tenets of permaculture is using it more as a holistic type system, incorporating it into play spaces, backyards, farm producing areas. But where we're standing at here is right on the edge of the children's play space. And what we're finding out in a lot of these areas is spiral herb gardens that are existing, as well as future tea gardens. Tell me a little bit about this space, if you could.
Yes, that's a great way for us to integrate our passion for gardening and cultivation and growing things and permaculture with childhood wonder and play by putting it right in their play space, so that it's there and it becomes just part of the fabric of their play space. So yes, we've done some very strategic things. This herb spiral was actually built by students at Grow last year as their end of year project. They learned all about permaculture the entire year. And the idea is to create a heat sink so we can grow herbs for them right here next to the garden and the play space. Then above, we were awarded a grant from the Garden Club of America, which we're dispersing by creating on this entire shelf. We're going to put in a fully edible perennial garden. And we're working on transitioning all the plants in this space to 100% edible. So every flower, everything would be safe to eat. And then in the anchor of that right here where we've kind of marked out, we plan to construct an arbor and kind of anchor it with a tea garden that would house all the plants that children could come and they could harvest things to go home and make tea with. Which just is another way to connect kids to where food comes from, where products they see in the store comes from. And it's so easy to integrate it into your backyard. I mean, you can see, like, yes, we can do it on a 14-acre scale, but we can also do it in a teeny tiny footprint right here by the sandbox.
Right.
You can sneak it in wherever you have a corner of green space, and that's what we really want to see and inspire people to do.
And that's fantastic, because I think you bring up a really great point for a lot of backyard gardeners, really thinking of it in terms as kind of a multi-layer approach, because there's a lot of families, young families, that have play spaces in the backyard, and some of the ideas that they can bring to kind of mainly enhance that area, enhance that learning, enhance that knowledge of where food does come from, whether it be cooking herbs or herbs for tea.
Yeah, and and another case in point in like that is particularly for urban people with very small backyard footprints. Our native persimmon tree is a very thin, upright tree that makes a lot of food that feeds a very wide variety of wildlife, from birds to mammals and humans. And that's a tree that could easily be popped into a corner of a residential backyard that not only would allow families with children to experience food being produced in their yard, provide a good ornamental tree, feed a lot of wildlife, and it would reduce the stress between wildlife and humans in the urban setting. We have a lot of conflict with wildlife because there's no space for them and no food. So just thinking about, what species of plant makes sense to put in the landscape. And that's really what permaculture is about. Thinking
plants,
about all those later.
Right place, ones that suit the ecology, that are low maintenance kind of thing. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So David, today we are mulching with mushrooms.
We're gonna be sheet mulching, or doing lasagna gardening, if people know that process. But the thing is what most people don't have is the cheese for the lasagna. And so fungus is the cheese for lasagna layer.
Okay.
And so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna add cardboard, and then we're gonna put the cheese on the cardboard, and then we're gonna add the meat, or
wood chips.
The wood chips.
Gotcha.
And then we're gonna have it out here on the orchard to help sheet mulch that and suppress the weeds. But we're also not only feeding ourselves, we're feeding the soil in this process.
Gotcha. And this is an important tenet of permaculture, which is building the soil, really paying attention to the soil so that it can be healthy for the plants later on. Is that right?
That's right. So the idea is that we're really trying to suppress weeds in the beginning, and so we're just going to lay this cardboard down. And that's going to be the primary layer, and then we're going to take this mushroom spawn, which is essentially just wood fibers and some other agricultural waste products. So some people use soybean hulls or corn hulls. So it's more of like an upcycling process too at the whole time.
Reusing. Yeah. Inoculated with wine cap.
That's
mushrooms.
correct. King stropharia is another common name for that.
Okay.
A real meaty mushroom. It's got a really nice burgundy cap. very similar to a portobello in its flavor profile.
Okay.
We're gonna rub this spawn on the cardboard here. We're just gonna try to break it up and just kind of spread that cheese as far as we can.
I'm inoculating, which using it maybe for wood fiber or a cardboard fiber as maybe a food source, keep it moist and everything?
That's right, yeah. So again, everything's made out of wood here. Everything from the cardboard to the spawn to the wood chips. So that mycelium is just going to be breaking that down into water, carbon dioxide, and micronutrients for the plant. So it's good to use this when it's wet. You really kind of want to wet the chips down, and luckily we've had a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks. So just do a layer of wood chips here, and now you can lay another layer of cardboard on top if you want.
Okay.
If you don't have it, it's not, you know, that important.
Okay.
But the cardboard adds that layer so where that fungus can just really run on there and have a nice bottom layer to work with.
Right on.
So then we'll just add a little more cheese on there, and we'll wet this down.
Okay.
And you know, if we don't get a rain or so in the next week, we'll wet it again. But again, that mycelium is really breaking that stuff down into its own water. So it's just essentially watering itself, and it's also watering this tree that we have here. Over the course of 4 years, this will break down into really enriched soil.
Fantastic. Well, as we've learned here today, permaculture is a very multifaceted science that has so much language and so much information to give to not only the people, but also to Mother Earth. So in your own time, please consider following some of the various links that we've provided to learn a little bit more about how you can incorporate permaculture into your everyday life.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.